I first met Justin Christensen a few years ago during a book signing at a woodcraft store in Chicago, Illinois. I remember thinking to myself that Justin and his work would make a wonderful episode of A Craftsman's Legacy. So today, I'm back in Chicago to spend some time with Justin, someone you might know better as the Scroll Saw Scribbler. Justin, this is one of the coolest pieces of art I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Can you tell me what it is?
It's a piece of a form of Intarsia.
Intarsia?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I just make it.
Fair enough.
It's basically just putting different species of wood together to create a piece of art.
Okay.
And cut out with a scroll saw. And that's basically all that it is.
Now, how long does something like this take you? It looks really complicated.
It normally takes a few days. I try not to time myself in the shop because the shop is fun time.
I like that.
Yeah. And if I start timing it and try to get faster, it takes away the fun.
Yeah.
So I'm normally working on a few things at once, and I try not to lose myself out here.
All right.
Yeah.
And I love the interaction of all the different types of wood. And it doesn't look like you have stained anything.
No, it's all natural colors of the different species of wood. I found that nature is beautiful in all of the wide varieties that it does, and it works completely well in so many different ways that staining it takes away.
What types of wood are you using here?
Bloodwood, cherry, walnut, purple heart, wenge, maple, soft maple, and holly.
That's awesome. So today we're going to make something like this?
Yeah, today we're going to make a skull and a rose.
Sweet. Can you tell me what you have here?
These are the templates that we're going to be working off of. They are just pieces that I've printed off and drew over with a pencil and started slowly working the design over to what we're going to make.
Okay, so this is what we're going to make.
This is what we're going to make.
And this is how it started.
Yep, I started with Googling a reference skull.
Okay.
Traced out a rough outline of it, and then I scanned that in. I threw a picture of a rose that I took on top of it, and then did a little bit more finer refining, trying to get away from the reference picture and adding more detail as I went along.
And how do you come up with all the different lines and stuff? Is that just art, just drawing it in there?
Yeah, it's just drawing it in with a pencil and messing around with different line thicknesses and weights. Like going softer with the rose or going more hard with the skull to make it a little bit more intense. And the type of cuts that I want inside of the piece.
Okay, all right. So this looks like it's going to be a ton of work. Where do we start?
What we're going to start is taking this pattern that I printed off, and we're going to glue it to this piece of walnut as the background of the piece.
Okay.
Once we cut out the outline of the skull and the rose, we're going to glue this piece of walnut on top of a piece of wenge.
Ah, okay.
So that's going to be our negative layer to create the dynamic of the positive and negative of the piece.
Okay.
Give it a little bit more depth.
So using this as a reference piece here, our walnut would be this, right?
Yes.
And then the wenge is going to be behind that.
Yeah, it'll be a dark line or a dark wood to create the outlines and the shadows and the negative space.
And then after that, all of the individual pieces will get...
Yeah, we'll cut out each one individually, shape them, and then glue them into place, and have a skull and rose by the end of it.
So what are we doing here?
We're gonna take this glue stick, apply it to the back of the template, and glue it onto this piece of walnut.
Okay.
We're gonna take a look at the walnut first and check out which orientation we like better. I'm thinking this way because we got some natural bug holes and some weird dings up here. I think it'll look better above the skull than below the rose.
Okay.
Then what we're gonna do is, we know that we're gonna make a frame for this guy, and we're gonna have a 1/2 inch on either side, all the way around, of overlap.
Okay.
Kind of like a cabinet door, so it has a little bit of room to expand and contract. So we're gonna make a quick mark of the 1/2 inch on either side. Thank you.
And it's more important that this just stays in place, right?
Yeah, but it's important that each piece stays in place because we're gonna use it as reference later as well.
Okay.
All right, so now I've book matched this walnut, so we know that we have a center line where the book matching is. And then we know that we got plenty of side room.
And book matching is just taking a slab, cutting it in the middle, and then spreading.
Yep, opening it up like a book
that.
so that it looks identical side by
So
side.
your grain matches.
Yep. Stick this guy down. Now that's glued. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some packaging tape, put it over it to further hold this down, and also lubricate the blade from getting too hot and burning the piece of wood.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Yeah. And it's nice and thick and translucent so that you can see exactly what you're doing.
Now we cut it out.
Yeah, now we're gonna drill a pilot hole for the blade to go through, and then we're gonna cut out the outline of all of it.
All the way around.
All the way around.
All right. So where are you going to drill your pilot hole?
So on my pattern, I made X's instead of blacking out everything. So I know that those are going to be empty spaces no matter what. So I'm gonna try to go around a corner, because that's the easiest place to start is at a corner.
Okay.
Because it's hard to keep a smooth line smooth if you start it in the middle of a smooth line. So having a sharp edge is a good way to start. So I'm thinking I'm gonna drill around here and then come down by the rows.
So I have a scroll saw at home, and I've used it on and off, but I tend to have a lot of issues with it. I don't know what blade to use. I don't know how tight to keep the blade. I don't know what speed to use on it. You know, it's always like hit or miss. Can you help me out with that?
Oh yeah, well the good news is nobody knows. It's always a mystery that you gotta kind of figure out.
Okay.
The blade size and the tooth per inch all are determined by what material you're cutting.
Okay.
So what I primarily use is called a reverse tooth blade. So the bottom half of the blades go up so that it cuts cleanly the bottom of the workpiece, the top point down to cut the top of the workpiece clean.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then you select how many teeth per inch. The more teeth per inch, the finer the cut, the thinner the blade generally, and the easier it is for them to snap. So you gotta kind of play around with what you're doing. What we have here is we have a big, beefy guy for some real thick stock or hard stock.
So what would this cut? Like,
Probably like 1 inch maple.
oh, really?
Yeah, 2 inch walnut. Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it'll cut some stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we got, I think this is around a 12 TPI, which will be more like medium, like 3/4 down. And it all depends, thickness and hardness of the wood are all part of it. So that's why you never really know, you gotta play around.
Okay.
You're gonna break a bunch of blades no matter what you do.
Okay.
And then you got like the finer tooth. I think this is around 20 teeth per inch. It's super tiny teeth too. That's what we're gonna use on this soft walnut.
Okay.
We have it, I think it's just around a little bit less than 1/4 inch thick.
Okay.
So it's not a whole lot that we gotta chew through, and it'll give us a nice smooth outline.
Well, what about the spiral blades, those that can cut in any direction?
I've never been a fan of those. I find it's hard to have a reference with those. You're kind of going willy-nilly. With the standard reverse tooth, you have the side of the blade that's not a cutting edge that you can kind of ride along to get a nice smooth line. The spiral blades are, even if you twitch wrong, it's going that way no matter what.
All right, all right. That could be my problem. I tend to use those spirals a lot.
Oh yeah,
So.
they take a lot more practice. Some people are amazing with them. Some people love them. I've never been good at them.
All right. And then what about tension? Like, how tight do you want the blade?
You want it to sing nice and pretty. Too high of a pitch, you got it way too tight, and it's gonna move around on you unexpectedly. If it's too low of a pitch, it's way too low tension, and it's gonna warp around your workpiece, creating more surface area for it to burn easier.
Yeah, because the blade will like bend.
Yeah, because they're so thin, they bend super easy.
Okay. Yeah, tension's always a tricky thing for me.
Yeah, and the sound is even a hard thing to do because like this blade sounds completely different than the thinner blades as they go down.
Sure.
So it's just like a 1,000 hours type of thing. You
Sure.
just got to keep just strumming away.
Just practice.
Yep.
All right. So where do we start with our piece?
We're going to take the blade off of our saw, stick it through our pilot hole, and then reassemble it on the saw, and then just start cutting away.
All right, cool.
What I want to do is these tooth with the reverse tooth, I want to make sure that the downward ones, which take up majority of this blade, are on top. The smaller section, the upward facing, are going to be on the bottom.
Okay.
Tighten it up. Tighten the clamps down. We're good. All right, so as I'm going along, I'm paying attention to which side of the line is my waistline. I know that I want this background to be solid, so if I screw up at all, I want it to be over here. So now I'm going into my waist to make a nice little turnaround for myself for the sharp corner.
Now, are you applying downward pressure?
Yeah, I'm holding it down with my thumb.
Okay.
And then using it as kind of a pivot point. Do you want to give it a shot?
I do. I just don't want to screw it up. I'm just going to go slow.
And then you'll notice how the blade cuts differently going across the grain than it does with the grain.
Yeah.
So you're constantly having to adjust the way that you let the blade do its work. There you go.
Oh my God, that's stressful. So we cut our outline. Where do we go from here?
Now we're going to glue the wenge backer to this.
Okay, so we're going to glue a piece of wenge to it. And I understand you've already actually done that, so we don't have to wait for dry time.
Yeah, I did one yesterday so that we're all set for today.
All right. And then what do we do after this?
Then we are going to select all the species of wood that we're going to use for the interior pieces and then find the grain orientations that we like.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Using the wood grain for movement within your work, is that something that sort of came naturally too, or was that another aha moment?
I don't think there was ever a big exclamation of a aha. It was probably just like a, oh, that piece kind of looked cool if I cross-grained it a little bit more. And then it was like, oh, if I just offset it, it moves a little bit. Is probably where it started.
Yeah, because it's, I mean, for me, it's really prominent. That's one of the first things you see when you're looking at a piece is like just how the grain is used as part of that design. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's always the case.
No, I mean, I slack sometimes. I'm sorry. I'll do better.
Okay, so this is the one that we just cut out. And this is the one that you've already glued to a backer for us.
Yep. So if we remove this piece, similar to the one that you just finished cutting out, we got the wenge back there.
Beautiful, look at that. Now, this template is already glued to this walnut, but we need to use this for these pieces, right?
Yeah, so I just printed off multiple copies.
Okay, so we're not even going to use this anymore.
We will use this to place the pieces.
Ah.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're basically cutting out each piece twice.
Okay.
We're going to cut it out of this piece of walnut and out of whatever color stock we choose for the individual piece, and then glue it right where that should be.
So you've already got a selection of wood over here for the interior pieces.
Yeah.
And how do you go about selecting the different types of wood and grain and all that?
It's going to be whatever the piece is specific for. Roses are red, so we're going to choose bloodwood for the rose.
Okay.
Skulls are lighter in tone, and it's going to contrast really nice to this walnut if we use maple.
Okay.
Whenever you're choosing stuff, you want to go for the highlights and the low tones of whatever piece you're doing. And luckily, maple comes in a variety of colors.
Yeah, this is beautiful, man. Both pieces.
Okay, so we're going to use this lighter tiger maple as the highlights, and then this piece of maple as the shades and the lowlights.
Nice. Yeah, I love these. And now, You've got a pedal already pre-cut.
Yep, I cut out a pedal template. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna select the grain orientation that we want on this piece of bloodwood. And since roses kind of explode from the center and move out, we're gonna want the grain to be moving away from the center as well.
Okay.
So we don't wanna go horizontally, we want it to be nice and moving away from the center.
I got you. Yep. Then so the grains come in this way.
Yep.
So, and this is just going to be sort of the same process we already did, where we're just gluing this and taping it to this piece and then cutting it out.
Yep. Multiple times.
And once it's cut out, do we do anything with it after that?
We're gonna shape it. We're gonna sand it and shape it in a variety of different ways to get it the contours that we want.
Okay. So you maybe soften the edges up, or
Yep.
put some little curvatures inside of it.
Yep, lower one side to make it look like it's going behind another pedal, that kind of stuff.
Nice. And then after that, do you glue it in place then, or do you get all the pieces done and then assemble?
I glue as I go.
You do?
Because it's all self-referential. So if I glue down one piece, I know exactly what the other pieces need to be depth-wise, texture-wise, that kind of stuff.
All right, let's get going. We've got a lot of work to do.
Let's do it. Do we just like shuffle off side camera? We have this piece, which is this piece on our final,
Okay.
and we have the grain exploding out from the center of the rose.
All right.
Bloodwood, which is a very hard wood, we got a thick old hunk of it. So we want to use a pretty beefy blade with a low TPI.
Okay.
It's pretty thick, so it's going to take out a lot of sawdust. As always, I'm going to start at a sharp point because it's easy. We like easy. All right. Now we just got some cleaning up to do and shaping.
All right, and where do we do that?
We're gonna start by taking off the pattern so we can take a look at the grain and see what it shows us. And then we're going to probably use a little bit of chisel work and the disc sander.
Cool.
Now over to the rotary tool. Do I got like a nice line?
It's a beautiful line.
Thank you.
I wouldn't worry about it. Looks like it's coming right along.
Oh yeah, smoothly, steadily.
So how can I help?
Well, while I finish sanding this one up, how about you start on the next pedal?
Okay, would it be this one here?
Yeah, this one we'll do next. So we know that it's not going to be as thick as this one because this is the most outward facing one. So let's compare this. So this looks like it'd be a nice thickness for this piece.
Okay.
So if you want to glue up the pattern, get cutting, I'll keep sanding.
All right. How was your childhood? Did you grow up around craftsmanship?
Yeah, I grew up around a pretty heavy crafter on my mom's side and carpenters and woodworkers on my dad's side.
So as a boy, were you just surrounded by that stuff?
Yeah, the woodworking side was definitely you're too young. Just so we were around it, we were able to look at it but not participate too much. My aunt on my mom's side, who was the crafter, was always having us help her paint and help her do this or that on the crafts she would be selling.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, did anybody get you into scroll saw work at a young age?
Yeah, my aunt, probably around 13, decided I was old enough to start doing the scroll stuff, and she would try to teach me how to do little crafts, little outlines of stuff for her ornaments or whatever craft she was working on.
At what point in your life did you sort of find your way back into it?
Probably around 26 or 27,
Yeah.
so another 13 years or so. That's when I inherited her scroll saw.
And you just started to play
Yeah.
around with it again?
Yep, just started super simple, trying to do outline stuff and just mess around with it, learn it.
What made you dive deep into it?
It would be the evolution of it.
Were you constantly like trying to push yourself as far as design and complexity goes?
No, it would be like, I want to try to make this one better, want to try to make this one better. Oh, I want to try this, I want to incorporate this. Ooh, there's a new species of wood, I want to try playing with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a constant just working on trying to get better. It's definitely like if you're lifting weights, I don't want to max rep, I want to build. I don't want to hurt myself right away and quit.
From your work, it looks like you enjoy drawing
Mm-hmm.
and illustrating. Is that something that you've always done, or?
Yeah, I was always kind of doodling. I've never gotten really all that good at it. I'm a far better woodworker and scroller than I am a drawer.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's really cool how you use the wood grain and the different species of wood for coloring and things like that, especially for a comic book illustration that would normally be pretty loud colors all the time. You know, a lot of reds and blues and stuff like that, really bright colors. And you're able to still portray that or pull that out of the wood. I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that was one of the big hooray moments, was when I started finding more and more exotics to fill in more and more of the colors. Oh, I can do this now. Oh, I can do this. Oh, that'll be awesome.
How does that go about? I mean, do you like you're at a woodcraft or somewhere and you see an exotic wood you haven't used before and then you pick it up and try it, or?
It's all sorts of different ways. It's just whatever I'm looking at, be like, oh, I wonder what that is. And then you find like wood databases or any other, go to a woodcraft and look at their selection, or look through any book and be like, oh yeah, that piece of furniture, that's rosewood? Okay, I gotta look into rosewood.
I got you.
Yeah.
You have an eye for detail work. You could tell you're very
Meticulous?
meticulous. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. About, you know, all of every little detail. And you really have to be with what you're doing, because there's not a lot of room.
Well, that's the best way to get better, is to start noticing more and more. And the more and more you notice, the more and more you notice you don't notice. And then you notice those that you don't notice, and then you notice the other notice. I've gone cross-eyed. There we go.
This was a lot of fun, actually.
Oh yeah.
I had a good time with it. It was like a little puzzle that you're making, you know?
Yep.
Now, is the skull going to be easier or harder? It's more pieces, it looks like.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be a little bit easier, because they don't need to be shaped quite as dramatically as the rose.
I got you.
And they're not as soft as the rose, so we can be a little bit more harsh with them.
Ah, okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, this is just, it's so, that was super fun. So I'm looking forward to getting into the skull. Are you normally, like, when you're working on a project, do you get tired of working on a project and you get to the point where you're excited when it's finished? Or is the excitement from like seeing it complete type of thing?
The excitement's definitely from seeing it complete. I do have a burnout of the middle of just about every project, where a couple pieces are in and then it's just like, I don't see it. Oh my God, I don't see it. This is gonna look terrible. By the end I'm like, oh wow, I did it. That was great.
No way.
Yeah.
You sort of lose sight of it?
Or just like, oh, this is gonna be the one that just gets all burned. This one's going in the burn pile.
How's it look?
You hid that one on me.
Dude, I did not hide it. It was here. I'm telling
That's
you.
a blatant lie. Either that or it's cut so good that it like miraged into it.
I cut this one. I think it was a mirage.
Mirage?
All right, so now we just have to go in and shape it all, right?
Yep. So for like the bones, you're not going to want to round over each piece. You're going to want to give some peaks and valleys inside of each piece to give the light something to bounce off of. Okay. It'll create more dynamic within each piece of the piece inside of there, so it'll be a good variation from the rows.
Okay. Do you ever think about your legacy? And I ask this because you do have the serving tray that your great-grandfather made, right? And you have a young son. Do you think much about your legacy?
Oh yeah, I've made, for his first birthday, I made him a toy chest with a big Q for Quinn on the front of it. And like, he has a bunch of my projects up in his room already and a bunch of old stuff from when he was a baby. So he already has old dad-made stuff that I hope will be passed down at some point. And then 3 generations. What does Q mean? That'd be great. Oh, that was great grandpa's name. I'm like, oh. And we have a skull.
That is something else, man. What a cool technique. Man, it's hard to believe we went from this to this.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, it was such a cool process. It was so much fun. So what's next? How do we finish it off?
Well, I made a frame for it. It's actually right here.
Nice.
And then we just gotta attach it to the frame and then finish it.
And how are we gonna finish it? Some paints and stains?
Great. No, we're going to use just a clear coat to protect the wood. Bring out some of the natural colors.
That's gonna be beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Killer, let's get to it.
Go.
So do you ever think about yourself in an artist or craftsmanship way? Like,
No.
do you ever...
I don't really like to claim to be anything because that's when someone will prove me I'm not.
For me, it was always being referred to as a craftsman was a goal. It wasn't so much as, referring to myself as a craftsman. It was, but it was more being looked at like that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I think we're on the same wavelength then, because it feels good when someone's like, "Oh, you're a true craftsman," or someone that I respect is like, "Oh, you do amazing work." It's always like a great something to strive for, but it's not really something that I think of myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You don't go around.
Hi, I'm the greatest. Hey,
I'm a craftsman.
no matter what I say online.
But your skill as a craftsman is amazing, but also your skill as an artist is amazing. And you do something that really, everybody, there's a lot of intersection between the two, right? But
Yeah.
the intersection for you is so pronounced, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot of difference between the two. I know a lot of really proficient woodworkers that are by the number of woodworkers that are just as much artists as they are woodworkers because they're creating. Oh yeah, and even some of the most simplistic, like woodworking furniture or something, can be the most artistic, even though some people will say, "Oh, that's just a standard that's a standard sideboard or something like that."
Sure.
And then a craftsman will come in and be like, "Oh, that's artistry."
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, everybody knows you for your scroll saw work, but do you enjoy other kinds of woodworking?
Yeah, I want to slowly go more and more into furniture making and incorporate the two more and more. I would love to be elderly and my house is just full of all the crazy stuff I've made, different pieces of furniture, and then all of a sudden, maybe in my 50s, I'm getting into upholstery and incorporating that in somehow, or metalwork, and I just want to see where it goes and evolve on top of this starting point with the scroll saw.